I am here with Hunter Neubauer, the co-founder and chairman of Oregrown Industries based in Oregon. You are a vertically integrated craft cannabis farm to table premier company in Oregon. Is that correct?
You got it. Hit the nail on the head. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm super excited to talk to you. I don't know you, and yet I know of you. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. First, let's start just a little bit with Oregrown Industries. You've been here, you guys were started in like 2013, so even before adult use. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We started medical back in 2013, 2014, and evolved into rec when medical transferred into rec in 2015. So yeah, it's been quite the journey.
And you were part of that process. You started in medical, and yet you were an early advocate of what I believe was called Proposition 91. And the discussion then was, how big would the market be? Would it be like Washington's, where we have separation between producer processors and retailers, or would it be more in the Colorado model of vertically integrated companies? You were an advocate of vertically integrated marketplace, and also of kind of a low barrier to entry, sort of not the Illinois model where you had to be a millionaire to play.
Exactly. That's absolutely right. I remember when we were advocating for vertical integration, low barrier to entry, funding to come from anywhere. So we were the first state that didn't have the 51% rule when it came to ownership. And you know, that was really important. The low barrier to entry was really, really important because the goal was to try to make that transition from medical direct or illegal market to legal market. And to do so, we didn't want to overcomplicate things. And we also saw, you know, the issues that Washington and even Colorado, because at the beginning they weren't allowed to be vertically integrated completely. And so we said, look, let's see what a free market looks like. And it ended up being something everybody wanted. And I'm surprised it passed in Oregon, but at the end of the day, it's been a tough road, but I think we're better for it. I think we've all learned a lot.
So let's talk a little bit about that road. You know, Washington did take a much longer time in rolling out after its I-502 initiative was passed, and with pretty onerous and pretty strict regulatory systems. Oregon passed its voter initiative, and then boom, we started seeing, you know, adult use sales that January, if I remember, just a couple of months, and sort of fast walked it, if you will. But there were some problems in that there was sort of what I'll call generously a dynamic regulatory schema, and some problems with adherence to that. Tell me about how that worked.
Yeah, I remember in October of 2015, we switched from medical to early rec, and it really came out of nowhere. Like you said, it was bestowed upon us quickly, and the only product available in the market was really outdoor flower. Mm-hmm. We had just harvested, you know, everybody had just harvested, and those were the first licenses that they gave out. So the OCC, I think they knew that they were going to try and do an early recreational release in October. And so in the beginning of spring 2015, they licensed basically only outdoor grows and retailers. So there were really no processors, no indoor cultivation.
That's right.
And a lot of the products we had on the shelf was mainly outdoor, which was great for the outdoor growers. They had never seen anything like it. They're selling pounds for, you know, $2,000. It was tricky to go from a regulatory framework that had no tracking, essentially, to adopting seed tracking with metric. You know, a big learning curve there, and there was a lot of questions and mistakes and good old fashioned who knows what's going on at the end of the day.
Right.
But
that's right.
The jump in business was great. You know, we saw a significant increase in sales. We saw a significant increase in opportunity as a business, and you know, we were happy to be part of that.
Right. And so your model, interestingly enough, because Oregon then, because of that low barrier to entry, and let's face it, in the quote unquote legacy market, Oregon was always what we would call an export state. There was always much more production than there was consumption within the frontier borders of Oregon. And that was the challenge, right? So the notion was, well, let's migrate as much of that economy into the regulated framework as we can. But you got then kind of a race to the bottom. So those $2,000 pound prices didn't last long, did they?
No, 18 was a tough year. And, we really saw what a free market in a box looks like. And that's what we created. At the end of the day, we got a lot of good people licensed. We got a lot of people included in the legal market. But we also thought we'd see some progression on the federal side that we didn't, right? So we didn't see interstate commerce take place as quickly as we thought.
Right.
Still not here, but we're still fighting for it. And that created a scenario where we had thousands of cultivators, hundreds and hundreds of retailers, hundreds of processors, and it was a major race to the bottom at the end of the day.
But you didn't do that, right? I mean, so in the land where, you can go to Oregon and get, $4 pre-rolls, for God's sake. You are selling craft cannabis in a boutique retail environment. It's very upscale. You're selling branded merchandise. You're mainstreaming marijuana for a broad audience, while some of your competitors are still in mom and pop pot shops selling, with a meat scale and stuff.
Yeah, and for us, it was really about representing what we love and what we love about cannabis, right? So we're connoisseurs. We love high quality craft cannabis, and that's what's great about Oregon, is that there is this phenomenal culture, as you referenced, that's been an exporter for 60, 70 years. And so the knowledge and the genetics and the cultivation methodologies that are in Oregon are phenomenal. Now, did the pressures of a free market in a box change some of that for people? Absolutely.
Right.
But at the same time, our goal was to remain true to what we believe in, and that's quality craft cannabis. And so we focused on small batch, high quality, yes, more expensive than 90% of the stores out there. But what we saw is that we saw educated customers starting to come in and understand what we were doing. And that really validated our purpose, right? So I think because of that situation, because there was such a huge shift from, medical direct to oversupply, to a market crash, to consolidation, companies like ours really had to focus on efficiencies and sustainability and creating quality products, while being able to participate in a market that was cutthroat. I mean, as cutthroat as it gets.
So how do you do that? I mean, I would call it experiential. I would look at, stores like yours and franchises like Cookies as trying to create sort of a unique, differentiated retail experience, as opposed to a generic, bodega, come in and get my weed and walk out.
Totally. And, that's for people who don't understand the industry, their initial impression is, well, there's going to be bars on the window. It's going to be like a dirty basement, and it's not going to be a pleasurable experience. And that's not what we want, right? We are in a place where there's craft beer, there's craft wine, there's craft distillery, the food. I mean, everything about Oregon, art, music, everything, the outdoors, a lot of that has come into our presentation of how we give a customer an experience. And that's really the goal, is that it should be an experience. It should be something that they walk out the door and remember for the rest of their life, whether it was their first time in a cannabis store or their 100th time in a cannabis store, and they could say, oh, wow, that was different. And so for us, it really started with education, because we believe that education is key. Bud tenders have a phenomenal responsibility to provide a consumer with a positive or a negative experience, depending on what they're looking for. And so, for us, we started with quality products to back up our presentation. And then we really focused on education, so that no matter what type of a consumer you are, when you walk in an Oregrown store, you're going to have a good experience.
So how do you how do you educate your staff? What are the methods for making sure that, because there's huge turnover, with bud tenders and store managers, and if the retailers are cutthroat, the employees are not the most loyal. How do you maintain consistency and that differentiated brand experience through education?
That's been very difficult. It's been a learning experience. I have never operated a retail business before. And so, we really focused on actually spending time as owners and people that, value this whole thing. And one-on-one trainings, from one-on-one sales trainings on how to do sales and how to approach a customer, shake the hand, say hi. Well, now you don't shake a hand anymore, but say hi, how's your day? Just a general approach to all of the information that we've learned from places like Dr. Raphael Meshulam in Israel,
Right.
MAPS down in California. Thankfully for the internet, there's all this information that's really been shunned forever surrounding cannabis that's now being brought to light. And so we really try to focus on the science and the data that's now being provided. And by using that, you open people's minds up into, instead of walking into a store, well, I want an indica. Okay, well, why do you want an indica? What's your purpose here? And so, then we go into, well, actually what's so funny is that even though Leafly may say this particular strain is an indica, if it's grown in a different environment, in a different place with different methodology, the test result, which has both cannabinoids and terpenes, so we're very big on providing terpene information on our test results, the terpene results are going to really determine where that strain is going to be and how it's going to affect you. And then all of a sudden you see people's minds light up. They're like, wait, what? What's a terpene?
That's right.
That's right. So that's really important. Now, as we've grown, so now we've got our store in Bend. Now we have a store in Portland and in Cannon Beach. We're going to open a store in Eugene, Q1, Q2 next year. That's become difficult. Training has really become difficult, particularly with COVID last year. And we did have a lot of turnover, and the cannabis industry does have a lot of turnover traditionally. And so we've really focused on our culture as a company and providing opportunities from within our business to grow. And so we've really done a lot of promotion from within, which is great. We're really, really proud of that. And then also making sure that our employees are appreciated. And so this next year, we're going to try to work on a whole training program and video series, both internal and external. We've leveraged a company called Learn Brands, which is pretty good. They do a great job on kind of B2B type training. So if you're a wholesaler, which we do as well, right? So we wholesale our products into the market as well, not just through our own stores. They have a platform that their bud tenders can sign up for, and they can go through training modules that we've created with them. And they can get, if they take a quiz, and then they can get a free dab or a gram of weed and consume the product that they're learning about, which is really, really cool. We need to do that internally because we're now at 90 employees. 3 years ago, it wasn't like that.
Right. That's a whole challenge. That's managing a whole ecosystem internally. And then from a brand perspective, how does that carry through to the product? And then will we see brand extensions like educational products or consumption lounges in the future? Is that sort of where you're going?
Yeah. So before COVID, I used to put on bud tender education events in Portland. And so we would rent a consumption friendly arena, and I would have 3 different sections. So depending on what shift a bud tender was on, they could come in for 2 hours, and we would start off and we'd have 3 different training sessions. I would talk to them about cultivation, our methodology, why we do it, what we love, loyal to soil, we're here. Right. And then we'd go into processing, explain how we do our processing. And then at the end, we would go into our products and we'd talk about our CPGs, the consumer product goods, why they're presented the way that they are, packaged, the information, why we give homage to the strain. If you look at our packaged goods, it's strain art. It's not Oregrown. It's the strain itself. And so why we do that. And then after that, we would consume the products together and we would talk about it. And I tell you what, the reviews and the feedback we got from that was like mind blowing. It was a totally different deal. They had never experienced anything like that before. And all of a sudden we had bud tenders and other stores selling our products over other products every single day. And so, it's sad to me that there aren't consumption lounges yet. We were closed a couple of years ago, but there were too many advocacy groups wanting their own version of what consumption would look like. And I think now we're finally in a position where the advocacy groups are coming together. And
that's right.
We saw that this last year where we actually made some headway because we worked together. And that's something that's been difficult in the cannabis industry. It's very, depending on where you go, I would say Oregon by far has the most friendly environment, which is crazy to me because it hasn't been easy. But in a lot of other areas, you won't even talk to another cannabis company because you're really trying to fight for your little flag in the.
That's right. Washington is very cutthroat for sure. California, Those folks don't play nice.
They don't. Yeah.
Colorado, again, it's very, very sharky chart. So tell me then about the regionality. You hinted at export. We don't have that, although we have some, they always tell us there's movement in the federal arena. I've been hearing that for years. But I believe that there's federal movement, at least, or feigning of movements. What's your sort of strategy? Are you looking at participating in other state markets? Do you have a regional, national, international strategy? And given that you've been such an advocate of what I'll call grassroots entrepreneurialism, are you looking at taking on money or working with one of the big internationally funded public companies?
Great question. It's something that I think about every day and talk to my partner Kevin about every day. We're really focused on honing in our processes and our company and our products right now here in Oregon. And our goal is to really fight for interstate commerce and really make sure, excuse me, that the states have a voice. And so I've been working with Steve Marks at the OLCC, and he's created an organization of regulators, and they've gotten together.
Yeah, the National CANRE, the National Cannabis Regulator Association.
Exactly, which is phenomenal. I'm really excited about it. And so I meet with him every couple months. We go grab lunch and talk about, what the conversations are looking like. And, things were heating up until about 4 or 5 months ago. And now we're kind of, maybe it's another year or whatever. But, he and the OLCC and the industry as a whole in Oregon are, in my opinion, poised to be a leader in interstate commerce, right?
Yeah.
Like you said before, we've been an export state for a long time. We will be an export state again. And so instead of us going to another state, like a majority of the MSOs, and putting up popsicle stands here and here and here and here and here, we're really focused on getting ready for expansion in a different,
which means ramping up your production, taking advantage of the fact that Oregon's got a huge amount of real estate. It's great land. It's wonderful terroir,
man.
Right. So you're looking at that sort of wine market where you're saying, yeah, you can grow grapes in Indiana, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be Simi Valley or.
That's right. And so the goal for us is continue to get better and have our products continue to get better in quality. And then when interstate commerce is allowed, I'm going to go put a store on Michigan Ave in Chicago. And then I'm going to go to Madison Square.
Called Oregrown, not called Illegrown.
Exactly. But I can't do that until I can ship my products there. I'm not going to do that to Oregon.
This is almost marketing the territory very much like they do in wine, where you say a Burgundy, right, or a Bourgogne, that kind of thing. It's that's right. Yeah,
exactly.
And Humboldt is set up, and really Oregon is perfectly situated with that. And you're all in the major. So tell me a little bit about then the business you're consolidating. A number of the licensees have not been able to sustain, and so you've grown. How big are you? How big do you want to get?
Well, we're in about 280 stores on the wholesale side besides our own, which has been really fun. It's been a challenge. Well documented, Oregon has been through quite a roller coaster internally. We've had a lot of internal issues. This last 18 months has been great. We removed some folks in the spring of 2020, and that's really changed our company. There's more communication between the divisions than there ever has been. Everybody's in a totally different place. And so I think that we're going to continue to expand our retail presence. We're not going to go crazy. We're not going to go 30 stores in Oregon. That doesn't make sense for us. But we're going to probably end up with, I would say, anywhere between 6 to 8 stores in Oregon. And at that point, we're going to go get another outdoor farm down in Southern Oregon for our extraction lines, expand appropriately. And this next year, we're going to go out and do a money raise to do so. We've got to finish up some litigation, which we're almost done with. And then we're going to go raise some money and find a strategic partner. And we're really, really excited about that because that's the next step before for interstate commerce for us.
So you're going to continue to sell through the 6 or 8 branded stores that you have, and then look at other stores and just be the brand. So it's sort of a product specific, product
Focus.
A focused approach, right? You start with the product,
Absolutely.
and then the retail is just one of the channels, but you'll have an omni-channel approach. And ultimately, if I'm in New York City or Atlantic City, I'm going to say, hey, I want that Oregrown weed because it's the best weed and
Quality
not
craft
this
cannabis,
local.
baby.
I love it. I love it. And then in terms of the experiential, I talked about consumption lounges. Do you see that entertainment experience education part of that, or that's just more internally
Absolutely.
training focused?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. If we can get there from a legislative perspective, I would be all over it. I would love to be able to have that opportunity. We just have to get there. We still have a lot of fighting to do. Thankfully, there's actually a good relationship now between the businesses, the advocacy groups, and the legislature, along with the regulators, which is like, I mean,
the regulators have kind of switched their focus, right? Like in Washington, they've just abandoned Leaf, and they're essentially saying, you know what, we're no longer going to hold your hand at every step along the way. We're going to be more like the IRS. We're going to, provide you with education of what compliance looks like, and leave it up to you to run your business and file your reports, just like you file your tax documents, and the IRS isn't logging every transaction that I do, hopefully. So that's kind of hopefully. So that's kind of interesting. Tell me a little bit about, though, the other thing is that one of the ugly parts of our industry is, because we've been balkanized, because we have all these individual states and regulatory schemas, testing is horrible, standards are awful, labeling protocols are ineffective. You just saw, Cura Select being kicked off because of misrepresenting, let's just put it that way, what they were selling. And then you've seen the OLCC get involved in things like Delta 8 and Delta 10, these what I'll call designer cannabinoids. Talk a little bit about market regulation and adherence to standards that are going to allow us to get to a federal, national, and international marketplace.
Yeah, no, I think you just hit the nail on the head, is that we need standards, and there's no go-to. Every state has a different way of doing it, and even ORLAP, who's supposed to be checking up on our labs in Oregon, I don't even know if they ever go into a lab. And so, there's this unfortunate environment where you shop labs because of certain labs that are testing in more favorable ways than others. And that's
because
not right.
Potency equals price point.
Yeah, and that comes down to customer education too. So that is still, that we're still in this environment where Everclear wins. Now, that has changed in certain areas of the market, which has really been interesting. It's been something we've worked on very hard, particularly in vape. In the beginning of vape, it was, if you didn't have a 90% distillate cart with fake terpenes, you weren't selling, or you weren't getting the dollar. And that's how Select made their name. They did a phenomenal job on creating tons of cartridges that were very high testing in THC. And so what we did is we said, well, we don't really think that that's the best solution. That's like, the experience you get from that is very singular. It's very, there's one thing you get out of that. We believe in full spectrum or live resin or HTFSC, whatever you want to call it, and because we believe in the entourage effect. And the entourage effect, if you do any research scientifically, is very, very important, because it lights up your endocannabinoid receptor system in a way that just pure Delta 9 THC cannot, right? So the combination of cannabinoids and terpenes together from that particular strain that you harvest makes a totally different experience and flavor profile for the consumer. And so for us, that's what we enjoy. We enjoy the flavor. When you go into a farm or a greenhouse and you squeeze the bud while it's still alive and you smell it, That's what we want to capture. So that's why when we create those products, we cut it down. It's frozen before 30 minutes. So that profile doesn't change. And we carry that all the way through the extraction to the consumer product good. And that's very, very important for us, not only from an enjoyment perspective, but also from a medicinal perspective. If you're going to have something that's going to create value for you as a person, and you're going to take advantage of your endocannabinoid receptor system, and you're going to consume cannabis, then you should do it the right way. And so that's been interesting to see. Now consumers in Oregon would much rather spend $5 more or $10 more on a live resin product than they will a high Delta 9.
So that education is starting to happen, and yet there is still a marketplace for Delta 8 and Delta 10, and economically synthetics, and the notion of just adding your terpene profiles and your cannabinoids in synthetic formula after harvest, after processing, is gaining popularity and is kind of the future. You're seeing Washington is signaling that's going to be part of the conversation. Where do you stand on that synthetic?
I think it's short-sighted. I think it's very short-sighted. I think that I think because of what we've gone through in Oregon, we saw that a long time ago. We saw taking cannabis-derived terpenes and distillate and mixing them together to create whatever strain you want. It didn't last long. It just didn't last long. And so what we have here is a crystal ball. So what I've learned going through the process here in Oregon is the power of the consumer. And I mean, I've never witnessed anything else. And this could transfer all across. I mean, you want to talk about global warming, you want to talk about political initiatives, you want to talk about all sorts of things. Guess who has the power? The consumer, because that's where the money comes from. So if you can educate the consumer on what a better product is, because they don't know, you're going to win long term. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing here in Oregon. It just didn't hold any weight. When people were informed that this is synthetic and you mix this with that, and it's basically Everclear with some terpenes you pull from some other plant, and it's shitty material that you did some color remediation technique on to make it look pretty. That's not craft. That's not quality.
That's true, but Hunter, you were talking about the migration towards the CPG model. I oftentimes talk about the mainstreaming of marijuana, and the reality is that in a consumer packaged goods approach, we don't know what's in any of this stuff. You don't know how your salad dressing was extracted, how it was distilled, how it was put together. You don't know what solutions or solvents were used in any of the processing of your food, or consumer items. Your personal grooming is a huge, and that's really sort of the market for you're seeing CBD and really Delta 8, Delta 10 are just workarounds for folks who don't have access to legal cannabis.
But why do you think it's that case? I want to ask you, why do you think it is that way?
Why is it that people don't know what's in their stuff?
Yeah,
I think that because marketing sells the sizzle and not the steak. We sell the benefit and not what's in the product. I sell Seeing America, not the Chevrolet.
Well, that's what we're changing. That's our goal. Our goal is to take the opportunity that we have and say, hey, you should be asking those questions. You should be looking into. When I go to the grocery store, I want to know where that lettuce came from. What farm did that come from? Where are they from?
Because we're a business to business channel. So if I'm a licensee, or if I'm in the cannabis or hemp ecosystem, how would you suggest that I incorporate this kind of ethical approach in my business?
Obviously, to document it. So if you're doing it, you need to document it. And that's something we've been doing, but we're going to be doing more of. And then have it on your website, have it on a customer facing platform where they can make a click and say, that's where it came from. That's how they do it. And then
making that testing, making that processing, making that manufacturing process transparent. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly.
And then how do we educate in a world where increasingly cannabis is becoming I guess the early days, right? We had cannabis culture, and folks that you got cannabis from were all sort of, I will call advocates, right? It was our avocation. We were celebrants, if you will. As we move into the more mainstream, you have just straight consumption. You have grandma who uses cannabis basics because it helps her rheumatoid arthritis. You have folks who take CBD capsules because they have anxiety, or they give it to their pets because their vet told them. So they have no cultural tie or point of reference. How does that change craft cannabis brands approach like Oregrown?
So, for us, I think an opportunity. Well, it's difficult for us to market anything because we deal with 280E, and it's not something we can write off.
The IRS regulation that says you cannot deduct anything beyond the basic business function. You can't,
because we manufacture and distribute a federally
illegal product.
Exactly.
So that's schedule. We're hoping rescheduling will take advantage. Will help that.
So
cannabis banking regulation is also being normalized.
So instead of us only really being able to spend a very small amount of money on marketing, we'll then all of a sudden be able to be like every other industry in the country, where 9%, 10% of your overall revenue is spent on marketing.
That's
we
right.
haven't had that opportunity.
So in other words, all that premium experience that you have in your store, all the education, none of that can be deducted as cost of goods sold in our 280E world.
No, so we do it, and we know it hurts us as a business, but we do it because we believe in it.
Right. And that's why there is a premium attached to that. It costs more to grow better and more ethically, right?
Yeah, it does. Well, no. Actually, if you're using proper cultivation methodology, organic, regenerative methodology, it costs way less than synthetics, and it's way better for the environment, and the quality of product is 10 times better than any sort of A+B formula that you can put through salt.
So let's talk. I just spoke this week earlier with Jason Lammers. He runs 420 Wholesale Pack, a kind of leading packaging company here in cannabis. He and I've been advocating for hemp packaging for years, and he tells me, well, it's not quite viable yet, but we have now recycled plastic doob tubes, which are at least they're not virgin plastic. We're not making new plastic. We're just reusing the plastic that's already in the system. Why can't we have hemp packaging? And then I also want you to talk about in Oregon, and really in California, less so here in Washington because it's not developed. The hemp and the cannabis folks don't play nice together, particularly in an outdoor world. Talk a little bit about that.
The packaging side is difficult. We're regulated out of sustainable packaging. We're doing pretty well. We've been able to figure out, we're working with a company called All Pack, and they are very sustainable. They use paperboard. They've got a phenomenal organization.
Recycled paper, hemp paper, bamboo packaging, that kind of stuff.
Getting better. But like you said, the costs aren't there yet. There's a company that uses mushrooms. So they use mycelium.
Super cool. Yeah.
I mean, like I hope to God that can become cost effective so that there's not another piece of plastic used on Earth, right? That's the goal. That's what we should all be working towards. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No, but at least somebody's trying, and we will continue to support those.
And you're conscientious about that at Oregon.
Of course. When it
comes, talk to me about the hemp guys.
Yeah. So,
cross pollination.
Yes.
Contamination. Innovation,
abusing resources. That's really what gets me is that folks like the legalized licensed people in Oregon spend a lot of time and effort going through hoops and regulations to make sure that we can operate a business, and we do that so that we end up giving respect to the environment and the soil and the land that we work on. And to see people pulling water out of streams and dumping chemicals in soil and
that's right,
treating their employees like dogs, it is extremely frustrating, all while not paying taxes, not being part of a community, not being part of the movement moving forward, and just trying to make a buck. And so, we've seen everybody, I've seen a lot of people go to that in desperation. The folks that I've seen do it go there in desperation because they're having a tough time in the legal market, which is unfortunate. And then you just see just bad people. And now that's not all of the hemp market, right? So I think that is we are in a time and place where there's an opportunity for people to take advantage of it. Now, as you're seeing in Oregon, with the, I think it was, I can't remember, 1,000 or 3,000 or whatever the new bill is that passed. The OLCC and now the law enforcement's working together, and so they're exchanging information, saying here are the licensed grows. You can figure out what's not licensed, and they're starting.
And some of that has been controversial. There was a company out, software company, that was mapping all of the grows, including the illegal grows, which you heard about that.
Yes, but at the end of the day, if people are going to abuse their rights to grow hemp legally, then they shouldn't be doing it. Okay.
So that's really the question, though, Hunter, is the push and pull between regulation and enforcement, and then you've talked a lot about sort of free and open marketplaces, and so regulation is a little contrary to the Milton Friedman.
It is, but I don't see how in today's world you can just not have regulation. I think that a certain amount of regulation is a necessity. Now, we're far over-regulated in Oregon, and we've figured out how to deal with it, but it's not okay, right? I'm with you. Like it's extreme. But if we don't have some sort of regulation, we're going to continue to have issues. And at the end of the day, we don't have time for people to continue to abuse the environment because nobody's checking up on them, or there is no regulation. That doesn't work either. So there's got to be a balance between, hey, we need the opportunity to operate our businesses like every other industry, and we're totally fine with being regulated as long as it's reasonable regulation.
That's my question is, moving forward, for an audience of licensees or industry folks, how do we shift our focus away from our own self-interest into more industry concerns so that we are more competitive? The challenge of a hyper local market with these idiosyncratic systems is that they're not sustainable, they're not scalable, and ultimately when we go federal, the big boys only think in a national schema, and they'll come in with big distribution centers, and it's less about the product and more about the distribution. Ask anyone in the alcohol or grocery business who makes the money, the farmer or the distributors. So, in that schema, if I'm, a small mid player, what's your advice?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question, and something I'm very passionate about. So I was never a fan of politics ever, and since I've been in the licensed and legal cannabis industry, I've been forced to become involved, and thankfully I've had some great opportunities to talk to elected officials and regulators, and really create a grassroots movement with a phenomenal group of people. And if we as an industry, right, here's this brand new industry, you reference alcohol. We're following the same path. What happened in alcohol, end of prohibition, mom and pops brought their operations from the basement up to the top floor. They created a product, they created a brand, distribution, commercialization, consolidation. That's all happening, right? So
and no wonder, because the regulators all come from the alcohol side of the game.
Exactly. So the way that we can stand up is by coming together. And this last year in Oregon, there's 3 or 4, I would say, prevalent associations that advocacy associations. Okay. And traditionally, they've all had their own agenda and their own bills and their own ideas, and it doesn't work. Okay. Now, what's so funny is if you get everybody in a room, you smoke a joint and you have a conversation, holy shit, we all have the same ideas. Okay. So what we need to do is come together, not only in our city, our county, our state, but as an industry, and have a single voice. And realize that we have the power. We have the power as an industry to decide where this is going to go. And so the feds don't just get to come in and redo everything because they don't know anything about it. They need us, okay? And so if we have a single voice that is based on good footing and an environment that is beneficial to our businesses, the consumers, and our planet as a whole, then we can do what we want. But if we can't come together and understand that we're better together, then we're going to lose. And so
how do you do that? How do you get these industry? And that's the problem. We just keep getting more and more fragmented, as I see it, as your interests get focused. You know, there's another industry group, there's another lobbying group created.
That's exactly right, and that's what happened in Oregon. And like, you know, I'll go again. We've got a little bit of a crystal ball here. That happened in Oregon, and now we've reverted back. Now all of a sudden we're talking about the different groups coming together and creating one group.
What group is that? So tell me, cut to the chase. What is that group?
We're not there yet. We're in conversations. But what we saw last year is because we came together, we got enforcement reform passed. We had some significant issues that were happening in Oregon. The regulatory body just abusing the industry. And we came together and said, you know what? We're done. That's enough. We cannot do this anymore. And we showed up to the legislature. We gave public testimony. We said, this is what we want. This is insane. You guys can't doing this. And so because it was all of a sudden $1 billion industry in a state of 4 million people, we have a voice. And now the regulators, the legislature, and the industry are working together. Holy shit, what a concept.
So it sounds like maybe you might take the mantle there and help coalesce all these factions.
I'm trying.
I love it. So if I'm watching this and I want to get involved, tell me where to go, how to do that.
The Oregon Cannabis Association is a great association. We've been around since the beginning. There's multiple other associations in the state of Oregon as well. But there will be a movement for all of us to create one organization. We don't have a name for it yet, but it's very easy to become part of any of the trade associations. And now we're starting to work on doing events. Show up to an event, educate yourself, meet some of the fantastic people in the community, and really join the fight. And we're happy to have anybody.
Fantastic. I will give you the last word, Hunter Neubauer from Oregrown Industries. It's been a real delight to have you on this morning. Take us home.
Thank you very much for the time. It's an honor to speak with you. We are so excited to be part of this industry, and we are pushing for it to grow as responsibly and as best we can. And we look forward to representing an interstate national movement that can help change the world.
Fantastic. You're doing a great job. We look forward to checking in with you in a little bit to see what's happened as our industry evolves. So anytime. Thank you again, Hunter. Have a great day.
You too.